Welcome to Charts Today. My name's David Linton, and today's edition for Monday, the 27th of February, comes to you from London. And markets looking a little bit more perky this Monday morning. We saw quite a sell-off in stocks last week. US markets down in the week, and that affected other markets, but we're just seeing a little bit of a relief rally this morning. So we'll take a look at markets, and then we'll look at the energy mix as well. We're seeing gas and power prices falling back in Europe this morning, and that was covered in our morning report as well, out to clients first thing. And we'll take a look at the price cap for that OFGEM announced today, and just what that means for UK consumers. So lots to look at, and we'll start by looking at currencies. First of all, the dollar index. The dollar had a pretty good week last week, and we're seeing this recovery off the 100 level, the bounce on the cloud support there on the weekly. Remembering this is my weekly, my daily, and my 60-minute chart, long-term, medium-term, and short-term view of the market. So we are seeing the dollar recovering, and it is nudging above that 105 level, which was a previous support level. So quite interesting that we're actually managing to just break through that. We do have a medium-term target to 113, and we've got a short-term target to 109. 105.84 was given, and we're pretty close to that now. So we are just seeing recovery in the dollar. Not yet enough to call a medium-term trend back to bullish, but the long-term trend, we are seeing that holding. That means that the euro has been weaker against the dollar, hitting cloud resistance on the weekly, and again we're waiting to see whether we fall through the cloud there. And on the short term, we are trending lower, target to 104, that's 1.2% lower still. Looking at sterling, we are below the 120 level today, so that's really quite significant. We're falling back there, that stronger dollar having a little bit of an impact. And if we look at against the euro, sterling sitting steady at about 113.5, so it has been pretty much a flat lining, just gradual deterioration over the medium term. Bitcoin sitting at $23,381, so we are seeing just holding that level. We did hit $25,000 and just pulled away from that, but we do have this target activated now to 30,150, and there's another one to 32,150 if, and that's a big if we make a new high. We've got a target here on the short-term chart to 23,847, not enough to do it. So watch the short term for targets that give you a heads up as to whether that target is going to be activated. Looking at the NASDAQ, we mentioned we had a pretty bad week last week. We see that weekly candle lower and the succession of days lower, and of course that's showing up in the 60-minute chart with the last several days of the week just falling away lower there. So the futures are actually up around 0.5% this morning on the S&P future and the NASDAQ future, remembering that we are in bear territory on that weekly chart. So we are still long-term bearish for markets on the basis that we fell through that chart middle of last year, and we've been in that bear territory. We do have an upside target, but we do have these downside targets hanging over us, so watch for any new downside targets. And short term, we're seeing a target there 3% lower on the S&P future. On the NASDAQ, we've got that same target activated, 3.5% lower, and we see we're below the cloud there on that 60-minute chart as well. The FTSE future is sitting steady at 7,900, remembering the FTSE did make a new all-time high just recently, and the DAX in Germany is actually up strongly. It's up 1.5% today, and just breaking through on that weekly cloud. Unlike the US, Europe strangely looking better than the US, but that is mostly down to the fact that US tech stocks have been seriously selling off after a massive run in recent years. Looking at Japan, we're very slightly higher. The Hang Seng and the Chinese market down about 0.33%, and we saw that much the same in India. So we are seeing Asia just looking weaker, and of course we didn't have the benefit of the US futures opening in whilst Asia was open overnight. And we're seeing here the Aussie market, that was really quite heavily down 1%. So we're really seeing that. But of course, it is above the cloud still on that weekly chart, unlike the US market. We'll look at the energy mix in a minute. Looking at some of the soft commodities, we've got wheat sitting at $708. So it's falling back into that bearish territory on the weekly chart and coming back to those targets that were given. And if we look at corn, we're sitting $650. Similarly, we are seeing after that big fall last year, we're just there, just sideways. So that's quite key. Gold really starting to nudge this $1,800 level, sitting at 1809 at the moment as we speak. So gold looking weak. We've got downside targets there, not looking great. Silver below the $21 level now, so really pulling back. The long-term chart was looking a bit interesting, but it's still bearish there. We need to break through 25 on silver to turn bullish. A lot of talk about precious metals this year, but we have to wait. Looking at US 10-year yields, we flagged this last week. Now sitting just below 4%. We negated that target. We've got a target here to 5.26%. A new high above the high that we saw previously will activate that. So we are just on the verge of activating that. And we've got targets here to 4.21, 4.2. These targets now looking really quite serious. The picture changing for bond yields. So that's really quite significant. A quick look at Apple, sold off last week, but well above this 130 support level. So interesting to see Apple's just still holding there. And Tesla, if we look at Tesla, that's been really quite a performer. That's doubled in price from that 100 level to 200. So it's really quite interesting to see that recovery. But the reality is we are still in bear territory for all these tech stocks. Now looking at the energy mix, I was looking at this chart this morning. These are global energy gas prices normalized. So we've got US nat gas in dollars. We've got Asian LNG. We've got EU gas, TTF in MMBTU dollars, and UK gas in dollars. So we're seeing like for like here, and it just highlights just how lucky America has been with its own energy self-sufficiency. Now looking at Brent crude, we're up this morning. We're starting to see a little improvement there. A target at 84.40 and that's on the 1 minute chart. So that's for today. And then on the 60-minute chart, we've got targets higher. Does look like we're making a slow transition through this cloud. We have on the 60-minute, on the daily, we've got to get really back into the high 80s to do that. US nat gas looking very strong again, having been really just nudging below that $2 level all the way up to 260, looking quite strong there. We called it bullish again today. We have had a little bit of a pullback, but we do have these targets. Keep an eye on the 1 minute chart. Looking at coal, we're sitting at 161. Again, that's off the floor as well. So that's quite interesting there. Just seeing that coming off the floor, back above that 150 mark. And of course, emissions, all eyes back on this €100 mark. Can we get back above the €100 mark? We've got targets to the upside. And of course, we put out our report last week on how high the emissions price could go. We've got all roads pointing to a key level, which we really looks like we're going to meet. So once we get back above this 100 level, those are the targets that we're going to be looking to. Looking at TTF, we're down 3.3% this morning, back to below the cloud on the 60-minute chart. Downside targets, we were bearish on gas prices today. MBP down also 3.2%. And again, just nudging those levels, watching that 120 level, that's going to be pretty critical. And looking at German power, so this data coming from EX on Montel, and remembering you can run Updata on lots of different services. Interestingly, there's a spike there. I can easily remove that. I can just go and click on the spike and it's gone. Really quite a handy feature in Updata. And we see here, we've got a bit of a mixed picture, but nudging the bottom again on German power. Last of all, a look at this UK price, and I put a post up on LinkedIn this morning about the price cap. The price cap's been set today by OFGEM, and really quite interestingly, with the removal of that £2,500 government support annualised, we are seeing a move. The new price cap is at 3,200, so we're seeing that potentially there's a £700 increase for UK consumers. But of course, prices are coming down, and we've got targets pointing to levels much lower, which is ultimately going to help the government and help UK consumers. So interesting to see just how we end up, and the government's now got a month to make a decision as to whether it supports UK consumers further or not. Politically, probably will have to. That's it for today. Until tomorrow, happy charting. See you then.